Hey everybody, this is Taylor with Top Pick Trading. Want to give you guys your Friday bar by bar. Sorry, I had some plans late last week that I'd forgotten about, so I didn't upload the bar by bar last Friday. But I want to make sure to get this one to y'all today. So it's Friday, July 26th, 2024, and so let's get started. This bar right here represents 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is about when Mack recommends you start trading. At the earliest, so that's where we begin these bar by bars. We're looking at the ES 2000 tick chart, and let's get started. So we come in and start by drawing our overnight price action here. It looks like clearly there's an uptrend here that just got a break, bounced at the EMA, got a higher low, and now we're retesting that high. So you can see this was a clear trend through the overnight. So if you still want to mark your overnight highs and lows at the time, that's fine, but seeing that this is a trend, it's probably going to break out of this. And it actually does hold somewhat. You get this lower high, but that EMA just held. This is a very strong move. You're pretty close to the EMA, and you'll oftentimes get multiple legs to a new high after the EMA holds on such a strong trend. So I think there was actually an 8:30 news item, so you'd want to be flat for that anyway. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. You've got to be aware of that in real time. You can see it reacted pretty strongly there. It gets another new high, continues higher. You get this nice bar. The EMA still holding, but notice that we made a new high on this after a break and 2 legs up, and you made a lower low here. Just a first entry either way, so no trade there. It doesn't trigger anyway. You get a first entry long. Now we're trading below that EMA. It looks like maybe there's a micro downtrend at play. It's hard to know if it's wider like this. It looks like this steeper version like this with a break and new low is probably the valid one. Sells off even further. Seems like there's maybe some support in this area here, but notice it's not really showing rejection, so it wouldn't surprise me if we trade below that. And it actually does end up holding, just chopping sideways, so nothing here, and now it breaks below. It's continuing lower, so now we have a break and a few legs down. At this point, you may want to look for something wider. That really doesn't fit that great. There's a lot of empty space right here. So for now, I don't see much that fits well. Spiking channel's not great, so we'll just play this as a break and new low. And it may be wanting to come back to this midline area. So we push back up to that EMA here, push above it. We get a technically by the count of failure, but it's right into that resistance, and this doesn't look like 2 legs. This looks more like a double bottom. It's moved kind of far. Continues lower now. We get a first entry long, pushes to a new high. There may be some micro trend in play. This actually looks pretty decent here, and you wouldn't be surprised after such a strong move, even after a break and new high. After a little correction, it may try to get a second leg up here. And now we get, actually you got a new high here, so it's just a little higher low, nothing there. It looks like maybe we're overshooting the channel, pushing back up to this resistance. Drops strongly below. So this may want to retest. Let's see if this level right here wants to hold. It's where we opened as well. You can see that yellow line. Let me zoom in a little bit here. You can see that yellow line here. So a lot of times prices will react at that level. It does react temporarily, then drops below. We have a micro downtrend in play here that has a break and new low, it seems. Pushes above the EMA and goes straight for that retest. And we turn at that resistance again. Looks like maybe it's just a tad lower right in here. Pushes back down fairly strongly, so we'd start our micro trend here. Bouncing at this level once again. Now it sells off at the EMA, bounces again here. Just reacting between that support level and the EMA. This is kind of congested. It's a little tempting, but we've kind of pushed through this level several times, and it's not really showing rejection here either. So I think you probably want to wait on that. Pushes strongly now. And now we drop below. It's kind of hard to know if the support level's in here or maybe in this area. This is really like the maybe the 4th touch. You've got one here, reacted here, just a little bit lower, maybe right in here. Came up a little bit short of it here, and now we bounced here. This clearly has a break and a couple legs down, pretty far from the EMA. It is an inside bar, and you've got 4 bearish bars in a row. However, this does look like the retest leg of this move here. So if you wanted to be super aggressive and treat this as a triple test, I could see it. I'm going to mark it as orange, which is super aggressive, which means I advise probably not taking it. But if you saw that one, then I can kind of understand it. But if it was a better bar and maybe a second entry and just a little bit lower, then I think it'd be a decent trade. And at this point, you may want to just draw this as a little bit tighter range here. That actually fits pretty well. So let's see. We do get strong rejection off of it this time. Pushing up. This looks like little micro trend may have a new high already. Pushes strongly to the upside. Let's see if we return at the resistance. We break above it. And now return to this one. So there's also some, actually we really pushed above that. So it's just sideways here. So I wouldn't risk taking something back to the EMA after we break above that resistance. And with this strong move here, even if it is a retest leg. Pushes strongly down to the downside. We're back inside this range now. Obviously, got a downtrend in play here. Get a break from that downtrend. Bounces at the support, no bar. So let's see if we can get a higher low. This would be also a second entry. This is a new high from this one. So first entry, and now we get the second entry. It does tick below, so it's not an inside bar. Backs up a little bit, but it's pretty far from that EMA, and now we're clearly holding at this range level, so I think this is a good trade. Signal bar is not perfect, but context is really in your favor here, in my opinion. And it works nicely. Pushes to the upside. Micro trend in play here. This looks a little shallow a lot of the times in ranges. The trend will start from the higher low or the lower high if you're from the downside or going lower. Turns at the resistance again. Bouncing around in the middle. This downtrend, if you drew it, it gets a break, new low now. Let's see if it comes back to the support again. We can consider another trade. Bounces prematurely. Turns now at this resistance, but notice that we didn't come all the way back to the support, so there may be some slight bullish imbalance, not to mention this move to the overnight, so we traded up into this range, so you got to be a lot more careful about shorts at this point, in my opinion. Get a higher low, but right into the resistance. Pushes higher. Turn at the previous general resistance area, it appears. It's kind of hard to know. Nothing's clear up here. It's turning at different spots. It's getting higher, higher, and then now lower. Pushes above it again. And at this point, this retest leg is very strong, so you may be able to widen that channel. Notice the break here was somewhat small. And this still holds price action pretty well. Holds prices pretty well. Comes up here. Still holding. Oop. Get a break, and we sell off really strongly here. Drop right through that EMA. It may want to retest, but now notice we've corrected probably 2/3 of it. So at this point, you'd probably give up on that idea. Especially now, it's still pushing lower. This seems to still be in place. It's a really strong move here, but notice still it's about equal to this move in strength. So you got big up, big down. This is still range behavior. Fortunately, your resistance isn't holding consistently. So let's see if the support holds. We get a break from that channel, new low. One leg down, this strong move. You probably want a higher low at least, because you may get that second leg down. And you technically get a higher low here, but it's right into that EMA. And it's very sideways, so no trade there. Bar's not great either. Doesn't trigger. Drops lower. Now it's holding here. We get a failed second entry short, but it's very sideways here. A lot of wick on that upper side. And right into that EMA, so I don't think you want to take that. It does work nicely, but it's hard to know that. Looks like you got an uptrend in play here. Turns at the resistance. You get a break. Just chopping sideways. It may want to retest now. It's trying for it. Just getting hung up in the middle. Nothing here. This is really sideways right in the middle of a range. It's really hard to know what prices are wanting to do here. There's not much of a bias now, at least at a local level. Pushes back up past the resistance here. Once again, you may want to start your trend from a higher low at this point. This is a somewhat strong move. Notice we came up a little bit short of that support too, so maybe bulls are regaining a slight bias. Remember this resistance from earlier? We broke out of it once, but now it's holding in that general area. This does appear to have a break new high. And now you get this set up. It's a higher high. We just broke through this fairly strongly, so I don't think you want to trust the resistance all by itself right here. It's very sideways as well. It does drop lower. Bounces at the EMA though. Pushes somewhat strongly below that EMA. Appears we have a micro downtrend in play. This is clearly has a break and a couple legs up now. We get a first entry that instantly dumps lower. This may be wider. Could be a retest. It's hard to know. Let's see if I draw that right from the wick. Maybe an overshoot. Hard to know. Notice how this holds at this body right here, so you can draw it off that first bar like Mack was talking about in his video, I think yesterday actually. And it turns somewhat off that. So that really strong bar here is, it seems like bears are coming back in. And now we get a first entry long, second entry long, and a short opportunity failure right here. It turns right at that EMA after this strong, somewhat strong move and this strong bar right here. So I think this is a pretty good trade. It's hard to know if bulls have re-entered, but clearly the more local stuff has played out in your favor, and it does work for a nice little scalp. Drops below this previous range high, just chops sideways. Appears that this was the break of this channel. Now it's got a new low. Pushing higher. Just chopping sideways. Really hard to know what's going on in here. Appears there's some little small range. Bounces at that support. No good bar. Pushes higher. Looks like this micro trend may have a break new high. Notice this continuing higher, so it may be a wider channel or a spiking channel. Spiking channel looks decent for now. Chopping sideways, still pushing higher. And at this point, you'd probably want to start looking for a wider version, something like this, or even off that spiking channel. That looks pretty good right there. Let's delete this one. Pushing higher, still holding in that trend. And we get the first break here. We get a first entry we can consider. A second entry long. Bar's not great, unfortunately. Pushes below anyway. Appears we have a little break, a new low from this micro downtrend. Just chopping sideways. You get this bar, but that EMA is really flat now. It's very sideways, and the EMA is not holding. The prices are right in the middle of it. So you can see this tight congestion here. Do get a like a triple test, but like I said, very sideways. So I don't think you want to consider that. Still pushing. You're getting good bars, but in this sideways stuff, it's not worth the risk. Breaks out of that. Pushes higher. Turns right at the highs here. This was a really strong move. Notice how we couldn't gap below that EMA. So you may get a second leg up. Let's see if the EMA holds. And you get a first entry. It didn't really hold exactly, but still not gapping below that EMA. And now we get this second entry. It's right at that EMA, or right above that EMA, just barely. It didn't really hold. So it's a little risky. It did test this previous resistance area acting as support now, potentially. So if you want to take a risk on this one, I think it's okay. It's not perfect because that EMA didn't hold clearly, but just given this overall bias and where it bounced, I think it's okay to risk, and it ends up working. Pushes well higher. Appears this trend has a break new high now. Still pushing higher. There may be some wider channel. Feels a little bit wide, but we'll watch it. We get a first entry long, drops below. You get a second entry, but after these three bearish bars and you're closing below that EMA on this little baby bullish bar here, I think it's a little risky. And now you get a better bar. This one's pretty tempting, but that setup bar is the wrong color. It's really a third entry because if you watch this, you got a first entry here, and then this broke above, failed, and then came back for a second entry. It's a really good bar, but like I said, setup bar is not great. And it's really right into this previous support, acting potentially as resistance. I think it's a little risky. You get a higher low, no tick below, unfortunately. Grinds higher. You get a failure by the count here, but so sideways. Works. Pushes higher. Sells off. First break of this, but it is a retest leg, so we have to be a little bit more mindful of that. It may not retest again, since this could be the retest leg of the spiking channel. Sells strongly to the downside. So now you're probably not expecting a retest on this. Gets a close outside new low, but it's still selling off. Chopping sideways, you get this higher low. Very sideways and not all that much room. This was really strong, so I'd be wary of taking that, and you can see it would have ticked you in and failed you. Pushes back to the EMA. Now we have a micro uptrend working. It looks like it may got a little small break in new high. Turns again. Appears there's some little range in here. It's hard to know where the resistance is, but the support seems to be down here. Let's see if it holds. And it does. Maybe it's a little bit higher like this. And I didn't draw it, but you had this micro trend with a break in new low. And now you got a micro trend to the upside. It gets a break new high. Chopping higher. Maybe the resistance is here. That looks decent. Pushes higher. Several legs up. No trades in here. Appears there's maybe a micro downtrend here. And now you've also got a micro uptrend working. It sells off, so you get the downtrend to play out here. Now you get this nice bar, but it's a little bit far from that resistance. I think it's a little aggressive. If it was a little bit lower, then maybe, but this is rather sideways right here. And yeah, not quite at that support yet. Maybe works for a small scalp, then dumps lower. It looks like maybe there's something working through here. This looks pretty decent. So below that, there may be an overshoot here. This holds off this swing and this swing, so it appears it probably is an overshoot. You do got an uptrend working here. You get a first entry short. And now you get a second entry short right here at this support, potentially acting as resistance. But after this overshoot and this micro uptrend here not retesting yet, you also have an inside bar. I think this is a little bit too aggressive. It is a second entry short at the key entry point. That makes it tempting. The location, I like it because you're at the range low acting as resistance and at the key entry point. But this micro uptrend was rather strong. And that little inside bar after a doji makes it a little scary. Fortunately, you wouldn't have gotten in it if you were wary of it, and it does work. Pushes lower. Seems to still be holding in this trend now. First entry. Seems like you have a break new high. If it's this inside bar in your second entry, not much room to the EMA anyway. And now you get this lower high. Sorry, I went a little too far with that. This lower high could be kind of tempting. This overshoot makes me wonder if the trend's already played out, but it did turn at a nice spot. It's forming right on that EMA rather than pushing below and testing it. This doesn't appear to be higher. So I can understand taking this one. There is some support in this area as well. That makes you a little bit wary of it. So I think you probably want to avoid that. Let's see where we are overall. Appears we're right around this level. So if you took this one, I can understand. I'll mark it aggressive. Let's see if it works. And it looks like it would have failed on you. Unless you took a smaller scalp, you got 2 points out of it. But that one's a little tricky. So I understand if you took that one. You get the second leg up now. Oops, excuse me. Dumps lower. No retest from the micro uptrend. And now it's past 330. So overall, pretty good trading day. That one's a little tricky right there. So if you took that and it failed, understand. The location of it's not great. It's a rather big bar. But one other thing to check is if we came off this measured move. Yeah, we came right at it. So yeah, so you took that, I understand. But besides that, you had the super aggressive test off the support. Then you had the higher low test at the same level. You had the failed second entry long, the second entry long right here, and then that potential loser. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. And we'll see y'all next week. Have a good one.